Hey, happy early afternoon, everybody. This is going to be a reaction video to the Phillies series against the Marlins. Being baseball is a very continuous game and pretty much daily during the season, I'm definitely not doing look-aheads and reaction videos to each ball game, but probably a look-ahead and then a reaction to the ending of each series because that is significantly easier. If there's obviously a no-hitter, a perfect game, or something like that, a cycle, obviously, some unforeseen thing in a game, then yeah, there probably will be a reaction after. But other than that, it's going to be series look aheads and then series reactions because that's significantly easier. Later today, I'll have a look into the Flyers season and what we did to get to the playoffs, to our first round, which kicks off against Pittsburgh, of course, on Wednesday and then Friday, which sucks because I have class on Wednesday and Friday, and a couple of the games these series are Wednesday and Friday. But moving on from the Flyers for now, the Phillies in the Marlins series looked very good. Even yesterday, they still looked solid. The bullpen, Adam Morgan, has not looked good of late. He has started this season very slow, very sluggish, and needs to get going because we need him as a lefty in the bullpen because he's really the primary lefty. Because how they've been saying all spring, Morgan's supposed to be able to get the lefties out great, but also get the righties out where Milner can only get the lefties out. But right now, both of those guys are kind of struggling a bit, which is hurting our overall bullpen because Kapler's one of those managers that's all about matching up righty-lefty. But sometimes when a guy's struggling, it's better to just put a good righty in, like Hector Neris, who has a split, unless if it's Freddie Freeman, of course, or Luis Garcia, who has a split against a lefty over a left-handed pitcher that's struggling. So you got to take that stuff into consideration at times, which I don't think Gabe Kapler does enough of at this early set of the season. Now, this series he did manage significantly better. Speaking of Gabe Kapler, he might have made a few different pitching changes that wouldn't necessarily need to be made, like taking Jake Arrieta out after 4 yesterday when he had 70-something pitches. He could have pitched the fifth instead of putting in Drew Hutchinson, who only pitched the fifth, who I thought we put in to pitch the fifth, sixth at least, because he's our long guy, one of them being Thompson, the other. And it didn't make much sense to me to put in Hutch and then put in Milner, who didn't even get it out, and then we got to putting in Ramos, I think, came in after that. So it kind of became a carousel when I think we could have just left Hutch in that situation too. So they got to think of stuff like that. We can't just keep carouseling our bullpen. But other than that, in yesterday's game, Kapler looked a lot better in this series. He let Nick Pivetta go 5 2/3, and even then, people argued he should have tried to let him get the last out in the sixth. But that wasn't. If Pete made that decision, none of us would have made that argument. This is just because of our reaction to Kapler this early in the season, and that's the fruitful and honest truth. And if anybody wants to argue it, then you can. But that's the exact truth. I've been at all these games so far. Everybody reacts to everything when it comes to Kapler making the decision, whether it's actually a good decision or not. People make it out to be bad. Some fans, not all fans, but some fans are down there bad-mouthing every decision, even when we should change the pitcher. So I think that Pivetta thing was just more of this is Gabe Kapler taking Nick Pivetta out and not someone like Pete Mackanin or even Chuck or Larry Boa from back in the day. So we have a different reaction to it, and that'll go away eventually if we keep having successful series like this. So Pivetta pitched a good 5 2/3 innings, giving up nothing. Morgan had a good inning that game. That was his best outing so far. Then Luis Garcia and Hector Neris came in to close the door in the first game. The first game, the Phillies just jumped out. They had a 5-0 lead, and they never looked back. Franco had a good game. Herrera had a good game. And then Franco homered again to be followed up by, of course, on the Saturday's onslaught on the Marlins. Franco hit his slammer, and Altair hit a slammer, which is the first time we had 2 grand slams in a game since '09, which was Raul Ibanez and Ryan Howard. And then Hoskins just keeps getting on base. He either walks or gets on. They're just scared of him at this point this season. Alfaro had a very good game that game. In that game, Santana had a home run. Kingery had a good game with a couple knocks. And Alfaro got his first big fly of the year. So that was just a great game for the Phillies. And also a great game after the first inning for Vince Velasquez, who figured it out. He only walked one guy. He went 6 innings, only gave up 4 hits, and only gave up 1 run and had 6 strikeouts. So after that weird first inning, where really the run given up was no other fault other than Jorge Alfaro, who launched it in the left, Vince Velasquez settled down after that and really pitched well. And then similarly to yesterday's game, where Jake Arrieta came in the first inning, had a very feeling out inning, and then did well throughout the rest of the game. He, of course, gave up, 2 earned runs, because 1 was unearned, and 2 walks. He had 5 strikeouts. He gave up a homer, and he had a 4.50 ERA after yesterday. So, of course, he looks to build on this start. But some of the things Jake was saying was he was happy how he took the steps after the first inning. He just needs to keep growing, because you have a little bit of a fluke sometimes in your first start back. And he should have went to the 5th inning. That is my honest opinion, and that has been most people's opinions that were yelling at Kapler at the stadium when they realized Jake Arrieta wasn't going back out for the 5th inning. So they just need to figure out how to manage the pitching better. Managing overall was a lot better in the Marlins series. It was a lot more fluid. It looked more like we were managing a baseball game and not doing stuff based off of just math. So this has been getting better. We look better in this series, and we look to just keep taking strides against the Reds, which is typically always a great series for the Phillies. The Phillies of late have always played the Reds well, and one of the big wins in 2009 was 22-1 against the Reds. That was the last game we scored as many runs as we scored on Saturday. So we always play the Reds well. They're always a fun series to watch. Another young team that's kind of where the Phillies were maybe a year or so ago. They're still trying to get to where we are now, where people think the Phillies this year will get close to a wild card, and the next year would get into it, or some even think they'll get into it this year and be a jump ahead of the curve, kind of like how the Sixers, in most people's eyes, got a jump ahead of where they thought they would be this year by end up finishing in 3rd or 4th, and then the Flyers for most after November, when people started counting them out, really made a comeback this year, so kind of like that. But the Phillies just need to keep doing their thing, need to come into this Red series and take advantage of this Red series. This has been a reaction in the Marlins series. Overall, it was a solid series. This has been Sports Fanatic News. I'm Joe Boric. Peace out, everyone.